Folks, welcome to another episode. I'm Evan Saint-Gerard, and I got my special guest, Warren Goldberg. And today's topic, we're talking about divorce and real estate. You're planning to purchase and you want to buy out your partner. This is the video for you. Let's get straight into it. Warren, you have the floor. Where do you want to
I
start?
appreciate that. How are you?
Can't complain.
Good.
Can't complain. You're drinking way too much water, but this is another story.
So I have been seeing over the last 2 years or so, especially because there's been a lack of inventory. I've seen a lot of divorces, and one of the things that I have been seeing quite often is people come to me after they've completed the divorce. The documents are signed. They tell me that they were referred by their friend or maybe their attorney, and the non-earning spouse wants to buy out the house, stay in the house with the kids. The earning spouse, has left and is paying alimony and child support, and they want to know how can they buy out their ex. Sometimes I'm seeing the opposite. Many times it's the earning spouse coming to me and saying the divorce is final. I've left the house. I want to be able to buy another house, but I have these alimony and child support payments. How do I qualify? And we do our best, but many times the constraints of the divorce agreement predicate that they must do what they're looking to do within 12 months or 6 months or 18 months or whatever the case may be. And based on how they are receiving income or what their liabilities look like, they may not qualify. So one of the things I started doing at the beginning of 2022 is I started going to speak to different matrimonial attorneys and their firms and talk to them about some of the things that they would need to know ahead of time. Really one of the things I really try to instill is if you have a client that is going through a divorce and is thinking about buying real estate, buying out their ex, whatever the case may be, let me help. Okay? How do I help? Introduce the client to me, not because I necessarily want to handle that mortgage, although frankly I would like to, but let me talk to them about their goals. Let me talk to you, Mr. Attorney, about how you're thinking about structuring this agreement, and let me help you to do so to see if ahead of time to see if it's actually going to work. So, a case in point is in order for you, if you're divorced and you're receiving alimony and child support, okay, for you to utilize that alimony and child support as qualifying income, you must be receiving it for 6 months. Okay, 6 months on time, consistently, same dollar amount. And if the divorce decree, for example, says after the divorce decree is signed, alimony and child support starts at that point, and the non-earning spouse must buy out the earning spouse within 6 months. Well, that's not going to happen because we need to show at least 6 months before they're going to qualify. You follow me? FHA is a little bit different. They only require 3 months, but there's some other factors involved as well. So, if I'm talking to the attorneys and I'm talking to the borrowers and they're telling me what their plans are, I can then help them to adjust the agreement to say, you know what, 6 months isn't going to be enough time. Your borrower needs at least 12 months to be able to do this refinance or whatever the case may be. And it saves everybody a lot of aggravation, a lot of headaches, and it most importantly, prevents the borrower from going back to their attorney and say, hey, how come you didn't tell me this? How come you didn't know this?
That's very key that you mentioned that. Basically, you have to. I don't know how many times I have to say this. Speak to your professionals.
Yeah.
You have their ear. That's what they're there for. You have questions. You have scenarios. Speak to your professionals. Your professionals are there to guide you. You are paying them.
Yeah.
They're there to guide you. So basically, utilize their experience to help you with whatever your scenario is, and be very candid and open with what the situation is, and they'll guide you the best they can. Warren, what else did you want to add?
Another biggie I see. So most often the divorce decrees stipulate that child support will be paid until the child is emancipated. What does that mean? Well, typically these agreements in New York State, being emancipated means that the child has reached the age of 18, or the child is a full-time college student, or the child has started working full time or has entered the military. Okay. Now, one of the things that is needed in order to utilize child support as qualifying income is that income must continue for at least 3 years past the closing date. Okay. So if you have, let's say, a 16-year-old child who intends to go to college, you may be thinking, well, that's 2 more years until they're 18 plus another 4 years of college. That's 5 years. I should be good. Not necessarily. Lenders typically will look at this the following way. You have a 16-year-old. They're guaranteed to get child support for another 2 years. But you know what? What could happen in 2 years? Maybe they decide not to go to college. We don't know that. We cannot guarantee or prove that this child is going to go to college at that time. So the banks look at it as having only 2 more years of child support potentially. Child support can no longer be used to qualify. That's a big deal. However, if mom and dad do agree that the child at 16 is going to be going to college, the wording, the verbiage of the divorce decree can be changed slightly to say not until date of emancipation, but until such time as the child reaches 22 years old or 23 years old or finishes college or something to that effect. So that way the verbiage in the divorce decree will support that, 3+ years of child support. And now it can be used to qualify.
All right. I just want to make sure basically we got that right. So
Sure.
basically you mentioned 3 years basically is typical. And obviously you have to have a conversation with your lawyer to make sure everything what we just discussed basically makes sense to you.
Right.
And I'm just thinking basically on the average, basically most people who are getting divorced, sometimes they're not in speaking terms, but they have to put that aside basically to look at the bigger picture, what they're looking to accomplish. So I have a lot of thoughts going through my head at the same time. So trying to formulate one thought, but continue.
Using that as an example, so you have a husband and wife who can't stand one another. They're not on speaking terms. But if let's say it's the wife that is the non-earning spouse that's going to be collecting alimony and child support, just for this example. In that particular case, if their attorney brings me into the transaction as an advisor early on during this divorce, during the negotiations, I can advise the attorney to change the verbiage slightly so that child support is not going to be paid until emancipation or, et cetera. We can change it to until 22 years old, till 23 years old, or something else that all the parties will agree to that will still allow the borrower to utilize that income for mortgage qualification purposes.
Okay. Is there any myths or facts you want to clear up when it comes to divorce and real estate and getting financing that you want to clear up now? There's a lot. How much time do we have? I know that's what you're thinking right now.
Divorce is expensive.
Staying married is expensive also.
Well, yeah. I'm thinking of an old joke, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it. Something to the why do people get divorced if it's so expensive? Because it's worth it. And then I'm also thinking, my wife is not here, but my wife is not in the office with me. But when she hears me, I'm sure she'll say something like, "Don't let the door hit you on the way out."
I think every wife has said that at some point.
I'm telling you, we are married 30 years. We've been through, hell and high water, but we are still together.
Good. All right. So myths that you want to clear up.
Myths about divorce. I'm trying to think of something more than what I've just gone over with you.
Do both parties have to be involved during the consultation? That's kind of one basically.
Oh, here's a nice tidbit. So sometimes let's assume again, just for the purpose of this conversation, that the earning spouse is the husband, the non-earning spouse is the wife. So they get divorced. The husband leaves. He wants to go out and buy another property. However, his ex-wife has not been able to refinance the mortgage on the marital residence. and that mortgage still shows up on the husband's credit report. Okay, so traditional thinking would be, how is this husband going to qualify for a new mortgage when he still has to qualify carrying the old mortgage? It's still his obligation. So Fannie Freddie guidelines stipulate that if there is divorce, and if the divorce decree or other court agreement stipulates that the husband is no longer responsible for the mortgage on the marital residence, the wife is solely responsible, even though the husband is still, on that note. And if the husband can prove to the new lender that he has not been making payments for the last 12 months, meaning his ex-wife has been making payments on time, underscore, italicize, on time for the last 12 months, then the new lender will no longer hold that marital residence against his debt to income ratio.
Could you say that one more time for the people all the way in the back, in the back pew?
Absolutely. I'll do like the old Saturday Night Live routine. For those in the back, so the spouse who moves out, who is no longer living in the marital property, who is no longer making payments on that marital property because the ex-spouse is, in order for him to not have to count that payment towards his debt to income ratio, he has to provide to the new lender the court order or the executed divorce agreement that stipulates that he is no longer responsible, and the ex-spouse must be paying that mortgage for at least 12 months on time in order for it not to be held against the new borrower's debt to income ratio.
Okay. That's a very important key piece of information. I want people to understand that and not just decide, hey, I'm not going to pay it. My ex is going to take care of it. You have to do everything legally. Talk to your attorney and make sure you do everything on the up and up. If you don't, it's going to bite you in the
Yeah. And I've seen many times where the divorce agreement said, had wording such as the spouse who stays in the house is responsible. However, in lieu of, I don't know, let's say $10,000 of alimony and child support, in this case, the ex-husband was going to pay $8,000 and was going to pay the $2,000 mortgage payment. So, the spouse was getting everything she was due, but it was being paid differently. And in that case, since the ex-husband is still paying the mortgage, regardless of whether the divorce decree stipulates that he's not responsible, we now have to qualify him carrying it. So, verbiage in the divorce decree is so important. And like I said before, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. If someone can bring me into the conversation early on during negotiations, so I can go over these things with the attorney, with the divorcing couple, the parties, it just works out better for everyone.
Well, that's the perfect segue. Now, for those who are watching this and they want to get your advice, they want to get your expertise, how can they reach you?
My website, you can go to www.mortgagewealthadvisors.com. There's a plethora of information on the website about everything we've discussed, about what we do and what makes my company so unique. There's also a way for you to contact us through there. And of course, you could always call my office, 516.
All right, we're taping this. We're doing this remote. I'm here in Queens and you're in Long Island. I'm
Yes.
assuming you're in Long Island. All right.
Yes.
Is there any other areas besides New York that you work in, or
We cover all of New York and all of Florida.
Okay. All right. Well, I think our time is up. Any last words of encouragement you want to give to people basically who are going through a divorce, who do need to make a change right now? Anything you want to say to them?
One of my favorite quotes is from Winston Churchill, and he said this during the Blitz, the Battle of Britain. He said, "When you're going through hell, keep going," meaning, this too shall pass.